Okay. And yes, I should be sharing screen. So everybody, we really appreciate you joining us for this webinar today. I'm going to go through some comments and just some information at the start to let you guys know what's happening today. But we're going to do a short poll. It's got just 3 questions on it. And Jenny, if you will go ahead and start that poll when you're ready. So you should see that pop up. Whether you are a general attendee or a Clean Cities coordinator, somebody from DOE or anybody, please participate in the poll if you will. And we're going to leave that up for about a minute or more to let you guys fill that out. So again, thanks for your time today. My name is Jonathan Overly. I'm the CEO of East Tennessee Clean Fuels. That's the administrator for the Drive Electric USA project. And then you also have, I put it in the chat, but Jennifer Kidd and Valerie Farmer with us are helping manage the chat and the polls. Jeannie's a senior project manager with us, and Valerie is a project assistant with us. Format. So as you probably seen, there are 14 different states participating in Drive Electric USA, the project that actually ends at the end of this year. Each entity, coalition state, is going to have about 5 minutes to present on something they've been working on. And then we will keep going. As such, we really don't have a lot of time for questions in between without turning this into a 2+ hour webinar. So we are going to hold questions till the end. You are welcome to use chat. You may ask questions in chat. Everybody can see the Drive Electric USA website. Is that correct? Jenny or Val?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And the state initiative, folks, if you will, obviously not when you're presenting, but when you're not, if you will pay attention to the chat, as well as people may pose questions to you there, or ask general project questions that you may be able to respond to if Valerie or Jenny cannot. And since I don't have a real opportunity, you're going to hear from one person that's one of the leaders from each state. If you want to reach out to them later on, so driveelectricusa.org is the website. And if you go to program teams, and I've just got another window opened here, you will see these little bars that will open and close. But for example, Mark is presenting in Alabama, so his email address is in here. So if you want to get in touch with the state, you can come in here. And so I've just got a couple opened here and find the email addresses to folks with individual initiatives. Okay, so I see a lot of answers in the poll. Let me go over here and I'm going to now share the presentation, get this set up. Okay, and I'm going to close the poll so that you don't have that window in front of you. So give me, Jenny, if you will you close the poll in the next 10, 15 seconds if you can?
I already did, I think.
Okay. All right. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. This project has gone on for 3 years. We're really excited to bring you some information about it. So quickly going through some introductory slides before we get into the first state's presentation. This project started in 2020 and is about 14 states developing statewide branded electric vehicle initiatives. Had the intent to grow the involvement by other states and seek additional funding in addition to the core work that we were all doing. East Tennessee Clean Fuels is we're all part of the DOE Clean Cities program. We were the prime, and then all these other states in their coalitions were leaders, but they were involved with electric utilities, NGOs, state agencies, municipalities to develop sustainable partnerships to advance EV efforts in their states in the future. So we had 7 priority areas of work. I'm going to let you read these if you want to, but just quickly mention they were building statewide branded initiatives, consumer education and chapter development, developing, community chapters that could have events related to EVs, all kinds of educational opportunities, engaging utilities and regulators, developing charging infrastructure plans, including communities, small or large community infrastructure plans, educating state and local government officials, developing kind of statewide preferred EV dealer programs, and then engaging fleets. So I just want to show you one outcome that we had a visual to from this project. Each coalition or state had on the order of 50 different things to do across those priority areas. But one of them was to develop chapters. So just one thing we can show you here is you see these different colored kind of warm or cool colors in all these states. Those are the chapters and their areas that they either created and developed, or there may have been a group already there and they just worked to help that group perhaps be more effective, do more events, something of that nature. So this is just one example of something that was done in the project where you can kind of see some of the impact. So we were really pleased that we requested and were funded by DOE, Drive Electric USA 2. The original project was funded by DOE, EERE, the Vehicle Technologies Office, as was Drive Electric USA 2. So all the colored states, not the gray lined ones, are the states that are going to be a part of Drive Electric USA 2. That project has just started, but basically now these are all the participants in Drive Electric USA from across the country. I think this is the last slide, and that is we are interested in entities that have an aligned mission or at least believe in the importance of accelerating transportation electrification in the United States. So if your company would be interested, there's just a little information here. It's kind of an ad exchange, but you're welcome to visit the site. If you go down to the homepage, you'll see a section of supporters, and we would love to talk to you about that. That's my email address on the slide. And when we get to the end of the presentation, that will be repeated, as well as my phone number if you want to get in touch. Okay, so I think up first is Louisiana and Ann Vale.
Hello. Well, good morning, everybody. No, it's afternoon. Good afternoon, right? So if you take a look, one of the things that we're all going to be doing, we're going to give you all a fun fact about our state. And my fact is about our brown pelican, our state bird. And it was declared locally extinct in 1963 due to poisoning from pesticides such as DDT. It got into their food supply, it made them sick, and it also softened their eggshells so much that when the mother sat down on, or the father sat down on the nest, it would smash the eggs. So populations were so depleted that luckily DDT was made illegal to use, and some other protections were put in place. And now today we have over 100,000 brown pelicans in Louisiana. Next slide. So the area of focus that we're talking about here is developing the statewide program. This is what we call area of interest number 1. And this is the all-encompassing one that is just building the program. So it covers a lot of different areas. So I apologize if I can't go deeply into each one of them. So we're just going to give you a really quick overview. Our main goal in the beginning was just baseline. We had, at the end of 2020, there were only about 3,000 plug-in vehicles in the state. At the end of 2021, there were only about 5,000. We were starting from scratch. So we wanted to make sure that the policymakers and the public understood the benefits of owning an EV. Let's just get them out there. Let's get them in front of people. And we wanted to get as many people sitting in the car, test driving them, touching them, talking to people who own them as possible, because you're going to believe someone who owns it and drives it, and they're going to let you know honestly what their experience is like. And we thought, with the lack of state incentives that all went away in January of 2022, no state incentives for EVs or any alternative fuels, we thought a 50% increase in EV adoption would be a really good goal for us to make over the project period, and a media reach of at least 100,000 individuals over the project period. I am happy to say that we have exceeded the EV adoption goal and definitely met the media goal. Our major partners were the utilities. These are the entities that were there with us from the very beginning. Entergy had incentives for their customers as far back as 2018. SWEPCO, Southwest Electric Power Company, they added incentives not long after, and CLECO has recently added them as well. So we have very strong support from our utilities. And we had a fantastic advisory board of about 15 to 20 people who really helped us to develop out this program. Next slide. Part of it is branding. You have to have a visual, something that when somebody sees you, they know, oh, that's the Drive Electric folk. So we worked really hard at raising funds and money to get t-shirts and very recognizable tents and tablecloths and feather flags. Our goal was not create a lot of trash. We didn't want to make a lot of swag that people would then throw away. That's not very environmentally friendly, but we wanted to have a very recognizable presence. And by offering t-shirts to every one of our volunteers or t-shirts to somebody who answered a survey, we were also able to get that, that name, that Drive Electric Louisiana recognition out there into the public. And I even saw one of our t-shirts on a plane ride back to New Orleans once. So they are getting out there. Next slide. One of our most effective projects was a very multifaceted week-long project. Actually, it lasted a little bit longer than a week. So for about the month leading up to our Clean Transportation Awareness Week, we had a legislative education campaign with emails where we would educate them about not only about the benefits of EVs and the status of incentives in our state, the fact that we had none. And we tabled in the Capitol, we had an evening reception for legislators, and we had this electric vehicle display in front of the DOTD, which happens to be right next door to the governor's house mansion, which also happens to be just down the street from the Capitol where the legislators were in session. And we had a large amount of medium and heavy duty electric vehicles, a couple of light duty vehicles on display from about 14 different companies. And we hosted a press conference right in the middle of this display with the governor and the DOTD secretary, allowing them to brag about all the fantastic things that they were doing for clean transportation, such as our climate action plan that the governor was very proud of, and DOTD, they were just kicking off their work for NEVI, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, in which we were selected as one of the contractors. So all of these things together really created a lot of media buzz and got us a lot of attention. Next slide. Thank you. So over the project period, we estimate we've reached over 13,000 people. We mobilized a network of 30 experts and stakeholders to serve on our advisory board. We have a volunteer network of about 87 electric vehicle owners, and we've recruited 48 automobile dealerships into our certified EV dealer program. And if you look on our Drive Electric Louisiana website, consumers can find a certified Louisiana Clean Fuels certified EV dealer in an area near them. They just look part of the state they are, and they're right there on a very interactive map. So we're trying to make it easier to connect consumers to these dealers who can sell them, not only sell them an electric vehicle, but have been trained and also have chargers installed for their use. And happy to say that EV adoption in Louisiana has grown about 147% over the project period. And we currently have 11,523 plug-in vehicles, and that was mid-year. That's not even end of year, and our projections are looking fantastic. For lessons learned, combining events where you have built-in audiences, making sure that there's another reason for people to be there or another draw. It really improves your impact, and the more stuff you can tack on like we did with our Clean Transportation Awareness Week, with really spending all this time building momentum and having activities all week, it was an extremely successful event. And when you're going to educate lawmakers, offering a private ride and drive where they can schedule time that fits their schedules without the media present. That way they can ask the questions. They don't have to be embarrassed about their lack of knowledge or incorrect information. And you can just be honest with each other, and they can experience this and learn from it privately. It was very helpful to a lot of the individuals that we had involved in our ride and drive that was for our lawmakers. And thank your volunteers. Provide lunch, provide a t-shirt, branded, of course. And that's it in a nutshell.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Real quickly, is it driveelectriclouisiana.org or driveelectricla.org for the website?
I would have to go because I just type it in and it starts to show up. Hold on, let me look. driveelectricla.org.
Great. Okay. Go to driveelectricla.org to see more about their website and efforts. All right. So I am up next for Tennessee. You can see, these refrigerator magnets. We tried to use these. I think many of you, especially the older folks, have seen stuff like this before touring the country, but interesting way to store some statistics and information about our states. It's not on one of these magnets. You certainly see Memphis, and probably everybody knows where Memphis is, but in the exact opposite corner, in the northeast corner of the state, is Mountain City, a very small city. And so oftentimes when people are talking about doing stuff across the state, they will say, yep, from Memphis to Mountain City. So Drive Electric Tennessee had really had some roots and it kind of just started, but we were trying to really accelerate what we were doing in the project for DEUSA. We set a goal of 200,000 EVs on our roads by 2028. That started in 2019. And we had a lot of major partners. You see some utilities there, KUB, EPB, NES. Most of those are utilities. Of course, Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation is a big partner of ours. TVA produces all the electricity in Tennessee, so huge partner for us. There was a roadmap developed at the end of 2018 into 2019 for what we wanted to do. And it included pieces like what you see on the right for the working groups, where we would have different working groups that would be focused on different aspects of breaking down barriers. Infrastructure working group, there's an awareness working group, policies and programs working group. Two of those meet quarterly. The infrastructure group meets every month, and those are open working groups that anybody can join and listen in on, participate in. So just some of the major efforts we had. First of all, chapter development. On the left, you see a slide that kind of has colored counties in Tennessee. And so you can also see the logos at the bottom. We kind of developed a system for chapters, but we've worked in basically all those areas to try to start new community folks that are interested in helping out, having one or more event per year. It could be being a part of Plug in America's Do Indeed events, if you know what those are. Every once in a while, there's other events that are just, fun fests in cities and stuff that they will set up in. So this is an effort that continues for us. You see a lot of the states still not covered, but we are continuing to work on that and think that is a really important part, to have the local voice, be able to have local people to hear from other local people about their experience with an EV. Some of the infrastructure planning work we did, we had a couple of different regional workshops, but one of them was called, was in the Upper Cumberland area. This is in the middle northern part of the state of Tennessee. But we invited, I think we had almost 45 people show up that day. And we talked a little bit about what the different kinds of infrastructure are, how they work for different vehicles, and then got their input on DC fast charge locations along corridors, DC fast charge locations that are not along corridors, and then level 2 locations that could be anywhere, state parks, city centers, etc. And that map is just showing, and the little icons you see in there, we broke them up into groups that had different icons, and then put all that on one map. So, and then afterwards we shared with some of the people in the community that participated and that did not participate, especially the utilities, so they saw those kind of ideas. I think this is my last slide, but utility engagement was a big thing for us. What you see on the right is a map of the, excuse me, 76 different LPCs or local power companies that we have in Tennessee. And so there is, and they also have kind of leadership organizations, both the Tennessee Municipal Electric Power Association, TMEPA, and Tennessee Electric Cooperatives. So there's a number of ways, and all these entities directly interact with TVA. But The orange ones that you're seeing there now are the ones we have been communicating with and trying to establish better relationships. Some of that was having driving EV leadership events. There was some that didn't really want to call it that had a different event that might have been a half-day educational event. And then we're working to have regular direct communications with them as well. So we're really enjoying some of the work that we're doing related to really reaching out from Memphis to Mountain City. And Drive Electric Tennessee website is driveelectrictn.org. Okay, Mr. Mark Bentley, you are up. Mark, you ready?
It would help if I put on the mic. Welcome to everybody, and we appreciate everybody being on the call today. Our subject today pertains to Priority Area 2, educating consumers and creating Drive Electric chapters in this great state of Alabama. Alabama is open for business. This first slide indicates just a couple of the things that pertain. Really, we are so excited because economic development and business and EVs go hand in hand in our state. Alabama electric vehicle registrations are up over 60% year over year. The state of Alabama on its own has awarded over 44 EV charging infrastructure grants to promote EVs and build business in our state. And we have over 1,002 miles of interstates in Alabama. Some of the plants that are so important to us, Hyundai is assembling its first all-electric SUV, the Genesis. Mercedes is producing the EQS and EQE already in right by Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We have a graphite plant that's opened. We have a brand new auto car business right outside of Birmingham that's developed yard vehicles that are EV, and EV charging station manufacturers plan to invest about $8 million in an Auburn plant to hire over 180 people. We are fortunate to have a number of the key OEMs and production facilities in Alabama, plus all of the secondary and tertiary suppliers. That is why such a red state as Alabama is all in on electric vehicles, with Mercedes, Hyundai, Honda, Toyota, Mazda, and just across the border in Georgia, Kia, all producing and helping us be the number 4 or electric. And let me start again. Vehicles are our number 4 export out of the state of Alabama, and Alabama ranks in the top 10 in the country as a state producing vehicles in total. Next, Jonathan. Next slide. There we go. Basically establishing Drive Electric chapters to serve Alabama facilitates Priority Area 2. On the right-hand side is our Governor, Kay Ivey, who in November 20th or 29th of 2021 gave the endorsement to the Drive Electric Alabama program in our state, along with, at the same time, launching the Drive Electric Alabama website, driveelectricalabama.com, and also ancillary media, social media accounts were launched on the same day to support the process. As you can see below, just some of the signs that we have created and facilitated. In fact, one behind the governor and one on the podium. Also below, you will see the 6 Drive Electric Alabama chapter signs that we have produced and provided to the chapters for their use, and these are the logos, et cetera, that they use in the Drive Electric Alabama initiative. Next, Jonathan. Let's talk about the major efforts in project chapter management. First of all, in the beginning of 21 and late 20 and beginning of 21, we needed to identify and recruit and educate chapter co-leaders that were willing on their own and with our help and facilitation to take the initiative and facilitate educational events across the state. Those 6 areas that we've shown incorporate the top 6 of 7 concentrations of EV registrations and really cover the majority of the state of Alabama. We produced a memo of understanding, or strictly a document. It was developed that echoed the information that Jonathan outlined on the Drive Electric USA, the 7 initiatives, etc. And we discussed them both in Zoom calls prior to meeting, and then as the interested people to be co-leaders filtered down in person. I went to each site or location around the state and discussed with them in person those areas and reinforced their understanding and their commitment to do the projects around the state. We created DEA, Drive Electric Alabama materials. We then provided them from the signs to business cards to pop-up signs to tablecloths that are logoed, etc. And then also provided marketing and PR support to attract EV owners to showcases where their vehicles and were displayed and consumers could learn about the driving electric. We capture the data for EV events from individual follow-up grant reporting. Next. Just a snapshot of some of the media that we have incorporated since 21. Earned media, which is articles, free articles, no, go back. The free articles around the state, we've generated 343 earned media stories with a publicity value of $550,000, which we paid $0 for. Social engagement, you can see the outreach and the views, and the PEP program, which is the state's program for education that is outstanding in the state, has generated a publicity value of $1.3 million. This was in concert, and this is a public education partnership program in concert with Tennessee and Georgia, but this is the Alabama portion, which is highly leveraged, dollar for dollar. We got 2 to 3 to $1 return. Next. And finally, it's all about educating consumers. During the 22-23 and in synergy with our DEA social media efforts, over 5,100 individual consumers were educated at public events, Drive Electric Alabama events across the state. We had 22 in-person Drive Electric chapter events across Alabama. Also at those events, consumers brought, our EV drivers brought 375 vehicles, and these were their personal vehicles, and they answered the public's questions while debunking many myths. The grassroots DEA chapter initiative in Alabama works. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mark, and love that sign. Your kids may never ask for gas money again. Let's hope they don't. Let's hope they don't. I think with that, Annie Lee, you are up.
Good afternoon. Quick fact about North Carolina. I'm going to focus on this battleship down here. It is the Battleship North Carolina. It was the first of 10 battleships of its type to join in World War II, and it's considered special because of the fact that it was considered a fast battleship for its time. And it's actually currently restored, and you're able to go and visit it if you should choose in Wilmington, North Carolina. All right, next slide. Our priority area that we really focused on was the educating of consumers and to create chapters. North Carolina is a bit unique because we already had an entity called Plug-in NC. So we operated under this name and really focused our work on enhancing the work that Plug-in NC was already doing. So we worked really hard to push the boundaries, to educate our consumers and to build out these EV chapters across North Carolina, further from where they were. So for our work, it really meant building stronger relationships with both our individual consumers, as has been mentioned by our other project partners here, but also with our Clean Cities Coalition network. North Carolina is unique. It has 3 Clean Cities coalitions that also helped in supporting Plug-in NC and us extending this work. And another big thing for us was to identify the gaps in our coverages of our chapters so that we can see where we need to go and where we need to educate to be able to continue the adoption across North Carolina. Next slide. For this, we were able to meet with our really interested individuals, as many have seen, but we decided to get creative, not just with our ride and drive and our national drive electric events and the car shows, but we realized that we needed to be also very inclusive of other events too. So operating places like getting into Earth Day events and state fairs and meeting people exactly where they work, so that those that might not be as curious as to show up at an EV specific event would be willing to come out and, you know, maybe poke their nose in at a different type of form. So to do this, we made sure to partner with our existing clubs and to continue that expansion. Through this process, we learned that this really takes time. We learned that there was a lot of questions and anxiety around infrastructure, so that became another area that we really started to focus on. And we needed to include all forms of EVs. So making sure that we talked about used EVs because there was a lot of concern about the affordability of new ones. And from there, we were able to build a really strong foundation to continue our project work. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. All right, Laura, I believe, with Missouri.
Well, good afternoon, and it's good to see you all. And I'm going to start our presentation with something incredibly unique about Missouri, which we are considered the show me state. And not many people know the origin of that, which was from a 19th century congressman that said at a speech in Pennsylvania, "I come from a state that raises corn, cotton, cockleburs, and Democrats, and frothy eloquence neither convinces me nor satisfies me. I'm from Missouri, and you're going to have to show me." So that is actually so true here in Missouri. And when you grow up here, you don't even realize that other states aren't like that. But that gives us an additional bit of work, you know, getting butts in seats and educating the public. So we can go to the next slide. One of our best success stories is we've developed relationships with the utilities, the small ones, but especially our main utility, Ameren. They had a personnel turnover and brought in a very EV-centric leader, and he's become an incredible ally. We do events together. They pitch in a lot of money to do things with us and pay, you know, for events and making them successful. So next slide. So this was one event that we did, and you'll see Kevin on the far left, and I'm in the center, and our Ameren people, and then we've got our Drive Electric signs there too, and we had 6 cars. That was one event that was really popular. And again, I can't emphasize enough how this partnership has been such a benefit for us to get the word out. Next slide. Now, this is an interesting tool that one of the PhDs in our chapter in St. Louis made probably, I'm guessing about 15 or 20 years ago. He converted a VW Beetle into an electric car before that was really the thing to do. Super bright guy, but in conjunction with our utility Ameren, we're working to bring this up to new technology, polish it up, have 5 units that we can do road shows, and kids can find out about torque and just learn about how the electric vehicle works. And kids and adults both just walk away like, I really learned something. So that's been a great little tool. Next slide. Now here, I had a city manager who was looking to do the community grant, and he had never ridden in an electric car, knew nothing about charging, but he was tasked with writing a grant. So I took him to various charging stations and let him charge in my car. And then we went to Ameren, and this is our Ameren ally right there in the forefront. And he actually talked to this guy from the Ameren point of view about what's good, what's bad, what to look for, what not to look for, and just really gave credibility to what we're doing. So next slide. And best practices, I would say, is just building these relationships, get together often. We go to baseball games, we plan events, but Ameren is really a group of them within Ameren have become just incredible allies for us. So that's where we are. I think that's the last slide, isn't it?
It is. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
I think we have Matt Wade from Virginia joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Matthew Wade, Virginia Clean Cities. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about our efforts in Virginia under the Drive Electric USA program. A little fun fact about Virginia is that we have more vanity license plates per capita than any other state. And so I don't know what that says about Virginians, but I know every time I see an EV, you get a very unique vanity license plate, because electric vehicle drivers like to let people know they're driving electric vehicles, and a license plate is a great way to do that. So yeah, next slide, please. So the topic I'm discussing this afternoon is priority area number 3, building relationships with our utilities and regulators. Your electric utility is going to be your fuel provider if you're an EV driver or a fleet manager. So building that good relationship and understanding with your utility, that goes a long way to having a successful electric vehicle experience if you're a consumer or if you're a fleet manager. And so our primary goals here were to develop our relationships with our major utilities in Virginia, Dominion Energy, Appalachian Power. Those are our 2 primary regulated utilities. We also have 13 electric cooperatives, which are membership owned and stakeholder driven nonprofit utilities that have boards of directors and are very responsive to their customers' needs. And so our goal was to try to build a relationship with each of those co-ops, support our regulated utilities in education and outreach events. And so an example of those would be, with Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, we attended some Get Connected events, which they provide for their members. We provided some EVs, we provided some outreach and education. With the Old Dominion Electric Cooperative, we helped them with getting about 20 electric vehicles, including a electric school bus, out to the Richmond International Raceway, which you can see there. And so they got to provide some of their higher level executive staff an opportunity to drive or ride an EV on the racetrack, which is very exciting for everyone. And then Virginia Clean Cities, we helped do a presentation on electric vehicles and charging stations for the executive staff. We also did a we helped with a conference for ODEC, where we attended and helped with ride and drives for some members and key stakeholders for Old Dominion Electric Cooperative. And then we also attended a meeting of the Blue Ridge Power Agency, which is kind of a co-op of co-ops. It's kind of where all the cooperatives meet to discuss and figure out how to best acquire power at the lowest cost, how to provide reliable transmission. And so BCC staff attended that to engage with the Blue Ridge Power Agency and the co-op members and educate them on what's coming in terms of electric vehicles and charging stations. We've also attended the Beneficial Electrification League seminars 2 years in a row. We presented, which is in Virginia, this is where utilities come and meet and discuss electrification trends, and the regulators are also engaged with our State Corporation Commission, who manages all of our electric utilities. And so, working with the SCC members, working with our utilities, that's kind of been our main efforts under this priority area. And we've been very successful. We've built great relationships. Some of our lessons learned, building upon our established relationships. So we previously had stakeholder members from Dominion Energy and ODEC. And so just deepening that relationship, showing value to our stakeholders by coming to their events, by helping with their ride and drives, by providing valuable technical assistance to their customers. This has only strengthened our relationship with these utilities and the cooperatives. And now we work hand in hand with them on siting electric vehicle charging, helping them vet, site hosts, like, does this make sense to put an EV charger here? And so, yeah, collaboration is key, working together for mutual benefit. These are all items that we've been able to bring forth through this project. And so then, yeah, next slide. So that I've kind of talked about the activities, ride and drives, public events, webinars. We have technology happy hours every couple months where we'll bring in a speaker. And so our technology happy hour, sometimes we'll have a utility representative talking about programs. One of the interesting developments that's happened, not necessarily as a result of the Drive Electric project, but as electric vehicles become more prevalent, is that the co-ops and the utilities are starting to roll out new programs specifically designed to encourage electric vehicle adoption. So, for example, Dominion Energy now has a new tariff program where they will provide you a charging station, they will install it for you, and then you essentially pay them back on your utility bill. They'll do this for a business, a residential customer, or a fleet. And so that really reduces the upfront cost and the complexity of getting charging stations installed. And so, yeah, the best practices, we have regular meetings with Dominion Energy and ODEC. We do these on a quarterly basis. We have engagement with our Rappahannock Electric colleagues, and then we're always seeking opportunities to work with our rural co-ops. So Southside Electric, Appalachian Power. We're seeking to branch out more and more into those areas because that's really where we can make the most difference and have a lot of impact through education and outreach. So, and I think that is all I.
Thank you, sir. All right, I believe Sumner from Georgia is up.
Thanks, Jonathan, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sumner Pomeroy, Program Manager with Clean Cities, Georgia. So our fun fact is that everyone thinks of us as the Peach State, but ironically, in the most recent years, South Carolina, and South California have both exceeded peach production compared to Georgia. But never fear, there are 71 streets in Atlanta that have some version of the name Peach Street in them. So we still represent peaches as best we can. Real quick, back to that slide, please, Jonathan.
Yes, ma'am.
For context for everyone, I'm going to be talking about the EV gaps mapping. And so looking at this map of the overall state, the 3 communities that we focused on were Atlanta, Covington, which is located right towards the end of Atlanta along I-20, and then along the coast, Brunswick, you see there on the side. So as I mentioned, we focused on EV planning and infrastructure, and we worked closely with our municipalities to help them not only assess what they currently have, but plan for the future. So we did this through a variety of steps. We first looked at which municipalities we thought would be interested, not only who seems to have a little bit more buzz around EVs, but also those that we thought would benefit from this, as well as some of our current partners. And then we tried to map what was already in existence for folks. And surprisingly, this ended up being even a highly useful exercise because the folks that we were working with in the municipalities hadn't really had the time to look at this and didn't really know what they had available already. So mapping, even just providing a basic map of the existing EV infrastructure so they could see how many level 2s or our fast charging stations that they had out in the public for the community to access. And then we also looked at things like population and economic growth. It was most helpful when we came to the call with some of this information but I had an initial discovery call with the municipality. So that way they could also tell us what their priorities were, what else they wanted us to look at, and come back for a second call to present those findings. So if requested, we had some additional maps made, and these maps, and through our series of calls, allowed them to have some more information that they would then be able to move forward with the planning process on their own. And this helped them not only think about that, but also consider future discussions and what they wanted to look at moving forward. Next slide. So starting with the city of Atlanta, because we had such rich data and highly populated area with this, we looked at several different factors. So this map is actually a combination of multiple maps in which our very excellent programs associate Eugene Rubinchik had created for us. So this is not only the EV charging stations, as you see here, with the level 2 being in purple and the light coralish color being the DC fast chargers. I know it's small, bear with me. This also includes population density packed onto economic growth projections. So this highlights the 4 key areas in the city of Atlanta that will grow the most over the next few years, as well as increase jobs over the most in the next few years. And it highlights the spaces that need those EV charging stations for both of those purposes. So the city found this highly useful and had been moving forward with their planning process based off of some of the maps that we provided. Next. Now, the flip side, working with Covington, is a much more rural city, but they are working towards making great strides towards electrification. So they wanted to see a little bit more about economic growth as well. They only have, I think, just about 5 level 2 charging stations within the city limits. That's the hatched area. And this has the context of within Newton County. So you can see some additional area information since the city is so small. And then the darkest region was the area that was projected with the most economic growth. Next. Lastly, we worked with the city of Brunswick in Glynn County, which is located off the coast near Jekyll Island and St. Simon's Islands, which, if you're not familiar with, are 2 of our tourist gems and lovely beaches and conservation areas. So the things that they wanted to look at, in addition to the charging stations in existence, were the different highways and intersections where there might be NEVI dollars applied, as well as economic growth areas. So the blue circles represent the 1 mile projected growth buffer. And then, as you can see, they've got several different charging stations, but not as many along the coast, which is where a lot of the tourists would go. So that was one of the recommendations that we made to them. And then the cluster of level 2 charging is mostly at a military training base. So they still need more in more public facing areas. But again, they found this information highly useful and a very great exercise to walk them through thinking about these various considerations when planning for their EV infrastructure. And that's all I have for you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sumner. Okay, and so from Kansas, I believe we have Taylor Korn. Hey, Taylor.
Hey, Jonathan. Hi, folks. Thank you all for being here today to learn more about our efforts here for the DRIVE project. My name is Taylor, and along with my colleague Jessica, we are representing the Kansas City Regional Clean Cities chapter. I know that's a mouthful, so you can just call us Metropolitan Energy Center, or MEC for short. And my fun fact about Kansas is that over half of its energy is generated from wind turbines, and it is 4th in the nation for overall wind energy production.
Wow.
And you can go ahead and hit the next slide. Thank you. So we're going to be focused on priority area number 4 today, which is to conduct EV infrastructure planning for corridors and communities. And so I want to focus on the EVST project, which was a pilot project funded by the Department of Energy and an opportunity that came about. MEC applied to the grant and we won it, and were able to work with a couple different partners to implement charging stations around the Kansas City area, with the goal of understanding more about benefits of curbside charging and test how increased access affects EV adoption rates, if at all. So this came about in 2019, and after we applied, we started working with the Department of Energy, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, the City of Kansas City, and Evergy to figure out the most suitable locations for these stations around the city. They're both in retail and residential spaces, just so we can really understand if there was a benefit of having more accessible public charging for people, and if that would entice anyone to, potentially electrify and purchase an EV or anything along those lines. So in terms of it being a pilot project, we ended up learning quite a bit from it as the project came to a close very early this year, and all the stations have been installed. We've had a lot of great feedback from the communities that they have been installed in so far, just in terms of people actually using them, getting some kind of benefit, and maybe even encouraging some folks to electrify. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so some direct outputs or direct measurable outputs of this project were that we installed 23 stations around the Kansas City area, the metro area. And these are, like I said, in both retail and residential areas, just to kind of test if, there's a better place to put these up. And one big thing, or one big lesson we learned during this process was that site selection can be a tedious process, just in terms of where we're going to install the actual stations. There's a lot of hoops to jump through in terms of making sure you're meeting the codes requirements of utilities and staying in line with city requirements. Just not every street light is, has access to street parking. You can't just install one of these on a busy street. That's not going to work. So it had to be areas where folks would be stationary for long periods of time, so we could really understand more about how these stations could benefit that community. And one really cool result was that shortly after we finished these installations, a resident in one of the communities actually ended up purchasing a Tesla as a direct result of the station being installed. He felt a lot more comfortable making the decision now that he knew he had infrastructure, right outside. He had access to that EV charging. So this went ahead and proved kind of one of the main goals we were looking for, which was to see if curbside charging can encourage EV adoption. And it seems like it can. Having more access to infrastructure most likely, encourage this gentleman to go ahead and purchase an EV. And alongside that output, there's also been kind of some city fleet electrification, increase in EV purchases, and other things that aren't directly measurable, as we are still kind of gathering data from the project. In the coming years, we will be monitoring all the usage data and things like that on the stations to really understand, how many folks are using them and being benefited by actually having access to a charging station, or something that is within their vicinity, that is not privately owned. And that's about all I have. Pretty short and sweet, but that was a big project we've been working on the Kansas side. So thank you all again for being here, and I will pass it on to the next state.
Thanks, Taylor. That's a good outcome. It's funny, people hear from events and other ways somehow, where some people learned about an EV and then bought something. Don't know if I've heard the story that people saw a pole charger down the road and then went and bought one. So nice to hear.
Yeah, that's my first time hearing of it too. But thank you.
Okay, for Utah, I believe we have Ms. Anna Cook.
Yes, thank you. I'm with Utah Clean Cities and presenting on behalf of Drive Electric Utah. So here we are in Utah, which is one of the most popular tourism and recreation destinations in the country. Interesting to note that we have a new flag as of 2023 there, superimposed over the old flag on the magnet.
Wow.
And our fun fact is that the seagull, which is the shorebird, is the Utah state bird, which is a landlocked state. And the reason for that is that there was a blight of crickets in 1848 that was threatening the crops of the Mormon pioneers, and a large flock of seagulls came through on migration or something and ate up all the crickets and saved the crops. So that's how that came to be. So next slide, we're going to zoom in here on the southwest corner of our state, which is where a lot of the most popular Red Rock Desert sites are, with high levels of tourism, and looking at building EV infrastructure through that region. This entire area shown on the map here is a designated disadvantaged area community by the EPA. And the reason for that is that it's just extremely rural in nature. It's one of the big challenges in Utah and all the Western states is how do we bring corridors and infrastructure through these extremely spread out in rural areas. 50 to 60 mile commute would be very typical for somebody living in a rural community trying to access, a national park or a gateway community hub for tourism. Utah Clean Cities has a long involvement supporting Zion National Park, which you can kind of see there as a bit of a hub in the region, and also has the highest visitation numbers of any park in Utah State. Supporting their propane shuttle system since 20 years ago, and in 2023, Zion National Park is actually transitioning their shuttle system to electric. In 2022, there were 7.5 million shuttle rides on that system. So the ripple effect of that kind of tourism really goes out into the entire region. So with this here, I want to focus a little bit about how Utah Clean Cities has been working with the Zion Regional Collaborative, which is a group of over 80 local leaders, commissioners, city planners, businesses, park representatives, and they're really focused on regional planning and coordination of all those communities and visitors in this larger Zion area. So this concept was developed between Utah Clean Cities and Zion National Park, the MOVE concept, which is looking at how tourism impacts mobility in the entire region, which could include biking, livability issues, and more. But with the Drive Electric Utah focus here is on building out these infrastructure corridors within this region. So, the main points to focus on here would be access through and to key tourism destinations for EV drivers, but also, and almost more importantly, is bringing the EV benefits to gateway communities, which would include workforce access into these areas, the parks, the gateway communities, either in their own electric vehicles or with electric shuttle systems for commutes, and also building out workforce development opportunities for residents in these communities. Next slide. So just to highlight quickly a few of the major installation efforts that are part of this work. And I'll highlight that the East Zion Initiative is a big focus right now to try and disperse visitation density from the western entrance of the park, which is just completely overrun with people. So there's a lot going on the east side. And the largest rural EV installation in Utah was part of our work with the Utah Department of Transportation putting in a 3 fast charger, 8 level 2 charger installation at Kanab Visitor Center, which is a key gateway community for access to the east side of the park and also bringing people from the Grand Canyon up into Utah, which is a common tourism path. And that was made possible with funds through the VW settlement money in 2021. Also, just quickly to highlight some upcoming installations that we're looking at and planning on using the types of units that, like a free wire unit or other types of units that don't require such heavy infrastructure. So dealing with issues like aging infrastructure, 2-phase power where you need 3-phase power, and also building out grid resiliency is really important in rural areas to kind of leapfrog some of those infrastructure problems and get the power source in place. So, okay, next slide. And then just real quick, highlighting a couple key best practices, really important building trust with local communities, focusing on how electric infrastructure upgrades can benefit the whole community and not just have the focus be on tourism access. Highlighting the opportunities for EV projects to bring overall power grid and infrastructure upgrades to rural areas, improving emergency response grid resiliency with things like microgrids and off-grid options. And then also just want to highlight a commitment to long-term support in these areas with partnership and ongoing focus on training, workforce development, and funding opportunities. It really just can't be an in and out kind of partnership. We're there for the long term. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, from Ohio, I believe we have Jake Schweimlein.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you everybody for coming. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the things we've been doing. But I guess first to start, fun fact about Ohio is that we were actually leaders in a lot of the kind of early innovations in the transportation, well, automotive space in the United States. A guy from Ohio City was the first person in America to produce a gas-powered automotive. Cleveland was the first city with an electric stoplight. And the city of Athens was the first city in the country, actually first city in the world to have police cruisers. So some things have changed a little bit, but we have a lot of kind of transportation innovation to hang our hats on over the years. And with that, next slide, please. So our overall goal was to engage with government officials in Ohio, who kind of we saw as behind the times and not really appreciative of the opportunity that we have in regards to the deployment of electric vehicles, but to educate them and help policymakers and communities develop more forward-thinking EV policies, and act as a resource for kind of developing a lot of these opportunities, covering everything from incentive programs that were in front of the utilities commissions, or going through the state house, to building codes and lane regulations for street side charging, and weights and development of weights and measures for EVSC uptime and reliability. So we focused a lot of our work at the local level. Ohio is a home rule state, so a lot of these things are determined on a county by county or community by community basis. So there's been a lot of outreach and education that we've had to go through, but we've had, I think, a really successful time of it. Next slide, please. So we have focused our work on first working with a lot of our regional planning organizations. So I've mentioned a few of them here: TMA-COG, which is the Toledo Metro Area Council of Governments, the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, and the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. A lot of organizations like this who have multi-county jurisdictions are usually based around one of the major communities. And between them, we have more than a dozen of these across the state. Between them cover, every inch of the major transportation corridors throughout the entire state. So we have spoken at, some of their various assemblies, been an educational resource that way. We've also been resources and members of some of their plans for like next generation transportation planning and sustainability councils and kind of committees that they were having, helping to be a resource and provide information and sometimes ideas on how they can develop stronger sustainability goals. We've also worked with state elected officials, including but not limited to the head of the Ohio Department of Transportation. We also work very closely with the director of Drive Ohio, which is the ODOT program for really everything that is next generation transportation. So we work with them on everything from autonomous vehicles to electric vehicles. They also do like UAV and low air transportation, which not within our bailiwick, but something I find really cool to talk about. But we've worked with them on kind of developing internal policies, also helping shape our initial NEVI proposal. And we've found a lot of success, even in what is generally considered a very conservative state legislature. So we have a lot of auto manufacturing here in the state, and over the past year and a half, really. Many of these, including Ford and GM and Honda, have either announced they're building new plants, in the case of Honda, or in the case of Ford and GM, are retooling their existing factories to produce their EV lines. And that's really changed kind of some of the conversation with the elected officials, who are kind of looking at it and saying, if we're producing these vehicles here, we also have to be able to use them here. So in the last General Assembly, we actually had a bill that was proposed and went into committee that kind of took a statewide effort to kind of revise some of these old regulations and rules that kind of need to be updated for the 21st century transportation that we helped helped be a resource to develop. And so some of the best practices that we've found over the past few years is working really closely with some of the other actors in this space. So there are a lot of fantastic organizations in Ohio with similar goals. Sometimes I mentioned Preeti Chowdhury from Drive Ohio. We've also worked very closely with the Electrification Coalition, with some of those regional planning organizations, including WRPC, and with an organization called Power a Clean Future Ohio, who focuses on green energy as a whole, to kind of combine efforts, especially on the local government side, and provide resources and toolkits that can be reused or shared, and kind of educate communities and develop recommendations on best practices. And also, best practice we found is to make all of these available where possible, online and for free. So I'm dragging on a little bit, but we developed some of these for NEVI and CFI opportunities in particular, and made some of those panels that we hosted available online. And I actually heard from both the planners at the city of Cincinnati and the city of Cleveland that they rewatched those panels 5 or 6 times in developing their own proposals for CFI. So certainly there is a lot of appetite out there, especially at the local level, for EVs, and kind of our role is easing people into the conversation and making sure they know where to start, because there's a lot of new information out there. And I think with that, I will hand it back to Jonathan.
Thank you, Jake. Good work. And I believe Rick or Tony, who's presenting today?
That'd be Tony. Can you hear me?
We can, Tony. Go right ahead.
Wow, that was really, hard to follow Jake on the same topic. Our topic, priority area, also is going to be discussing to educate state and local government. But a great fact about Pennsylvania is that D.G. Yingling and Sons began brewing beer in 1829 in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, making it the oldest brewery in the country. And it's only 10 minutes from my house. So just to let you guys know a little fact about PA. There's a lot of facts about PA. Chocolate capital of the United States, a lot of other ones, but I thought the beer one would entertain everybody. All right, next slide.
Be an award winner, Tony.
Of course. I know people were interested in that. All right. So like I said, we're talking about educating state and local government officials. The main goal was to educate state and local officials about the benefits of electric vehicles. So this project started in 2020, the Drive USA, but in about 2016, Rick is the Clean Cities director for the western part of the state, Pittsburgh region Clean Cities, and I am the eastern part of the state, for those of you who don't know me. And together we worked on this project. So Rick and I split the state up in half as DOE, bound for DOE boundaries, but we worked together on this project to do a statewide EV education. So we started the Drive Electric Pennsylvania Coalition probably back in 2016. We started talking with the state agencies, and it was Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection, the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, and the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, which is our Parks and Recreation Department here in PA. So we started back in 2016, just trying to organize how we were going to get EVs on the road. So take it to 2020. When this project started, we worked diligently with our Department of Environmental Protection. In Pennsylvania, we are lucky they give out funding every year called the Alternative Fuel Incentive Grant. So they give out funding for vehicles, alternative fuel vehicles, and for infrastructure. So there, with that, we were able to secure some funding for some of our members and some new stakeholders for electric vehicles. So that helped us out. But along the way, we worked with the Department of Transportation, who obviously is in charge of the NEVI funding. And just through our work with those government agencies, we were able to meet a lot of state and local government officials. We had workshops that we've put on with both the DEP, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and the Department of Transportation. We ran out when the NEVI dollars were going to be announced. We went around the state, both Rick's coalition and our coalition went around the state with PennDOT, and we discussed kind of Drive Electric Pennsylvania, what we do, what our capabilities are, and all of the resources that we have at our fingertips. So that being part of that, we got introduced to many state and municipal potential partners. In 2019, we helped develop the Pennsylvania Electric Vehicle Roadmap, and it was updated in 2020. So that was part of what we did with the government. The education outreach is kind of like Jake said, it's an integral part of what we do, because we are educating a lot of legislators. Rick and I spoke in front of a congressional, we gave a testimony about EVs and the charging stations. We spoke to the tourism committee about electric charging stations. We helped Department of Conservation and Natural Resources put in charging stations. I think there's 85 or 87 parks in state parks in Pennsylvania, and they plan on putting EV charging stations at each one of those. So before we go to the next slide, we worked with a lot of different municipalities to help convert to alternative fuels, especially EVs. I know Rick has been working with Pittsburgh, and you can see their logos on the left side. And I've been working with the county of Delaware, which is in southeast Pennsylvania near Philadelphia, to convert their fleet to electric vehicles. Next slide. Okay, so the major efforts in PA, I think the biggest thing that we got at working with the state and local legislatures is really meeting the people, getting people to know who we are, what we do. Rick and I attend quarterly meetings with the Drive Electric Pennsylvania Coalition. Like I said, it was started in 2016, but now I think we started with 5 organizations. I think we're up to about 140 organizations that are on these quarterly phone calls with us. Next month is the first in-person meeting since COVID. We haven't had an in-person meeting, so you can look at that picture. You see the back of my head and back of Rick's head on the bottom left picture. These are the meetings that we used to do quarterly in Harrisburg. So again, meeting public officials and municipal officials is very important. They want to know what's in it for their communities. And the other pictures show we also were invited to talk when the EPA announced their clean school bus program. Those are our federal officials, our federal Senator Casey and our federal Congressman Cartwright, along with the EPA Michael Regan director. So we are involved. We try to stay involved. The one good thing I want to tell everybody on this call is, especially if you're on the project too, is really stay in touch and work with PennDOTs, with your Department of Transportation, with your Department of Environmental Protection, because they are the ones that are doing this. And if you help them with their programs, you're surely able to hopefully benefit off of working with them. So that's our presentation, and we will pass it along.
Thank you, Tony. Don't know that we can underscore enough, like you were just saying. There's all kinds of educational work we got to do, partnerships with government agencies, large and smaller. critically important. Okay, I think we have Gabriella Perkins from Colorado and Drive Electric Colorado.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriella Perkins. I'm the manager of the Drive Electric Colorado program here at our coalition, Drive Clean Colorado. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share more about our work within this program. Kicking things off with a fun fact. Why is Denver referred to as the Mile High City? For those of you who don't know, Denver is actually 1 mile high in elevation. So Colorado is home to a wide variety of elevations, including some of the most scenic 14ers in the nation. If you're ever in town renting a vehicle, we encourage you to try to rent an EV and test out some of the regen braking while driving down some of those. We've heard and seen some great things. So, all right, we will jump in. Next slide. Okay, so little background. The state of Colorado has been really focused on zero emission transportation. In 2019, our state set a goal to get 940,000 EVs on the road by 2030. Very ambitious goal. So the Drive Electric Colorado program really serves as an important resource to Coloradoans to get unbiased information and coaching support on all things EVs and EV charging. So today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about our preferred dealer program with the Drive Electric Colorado initiative. Our main goal within that program is to connect dealerships around Colorado with prospective EV buyers with a focus on engaging underrepresented communities. So here's some of the dealership benefits we have listed here. So opportunities to engage with Drive Electric ride and drive events, sales staff trainings with the Drive Electric team members, covering the basics and fundings of incentives, support for installations. We also offer a concierge coaching service to new EV customers, you could get featured on the Drive Electric website and our monthly newsletter, marketing support with our events and promotions, and then coming soon, we're going to kick off group buys. So I wanted to just share a little bit about how we put this dealership benefits package together. So when we were first putting our dealer program together, we really had to understand how to make these relationships with our dealerships reciprocal so that they would want to engage with us to support their needs and we could work with them to support the goals of the Drive Electric Colorado initiative. We work with a really wide variety of communities in Colorado, from farming towns and rural areas to bustling cities with increasingly dense population areas and everything in between that. So we first had to learn, what do the dealers need to be successful? What do they need to be successful in selling EVs or getting EVs on their lot if they don't have them already? So to kick things off, we started a series of dealer days, is what we call them, where we would visit several dealerships, introduce ourselves, and hear from them what they need. We really understood, once we kind of started doing these and introduced ourselves and informed them what we were doing and that we were a resource to help them sell EVs, they were really open and willing to engage with us. So we really gathered a list of takeaways to build our dealership benefits package. And this gave us a way to kind of formalize our relationship with those dealerships, as well as put some plans on paper with them. So that covers a lot of the stuff that is listed on this slide. So next slide. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about successes from our program. This are things that we've just seen with a couple of our partner dealerships across the board. So we've seen an increase of EVs at ride and drive events that we host. These partnerships have really allowed us to leverage EVs from these dealerships and get them out. One of the big comments that we heard from our dealer days is that we want to get our name out, brand recognition among our community. So what better way to do that than to invite them to come to the community themselves to show off their EVs and do ride and drive events with us. We see a high EV sales number for dealer partners in comparison to other dealers in the state. So we see really high reported EV sales numbers from our partner dealers, and we're really proud to help support those efforts. We also see that our dealer partners are committed to stocking used EVs on their lots. They know and understand that this is a really important piece of the growing and developing EV market. So we're really excited to see that they're on board with keeping this going. And then lastly, it's a sustainable resource for our program. And you'll see a picture here of one of our regional coordinators in an EV from one of our partner dealers at the drive at the Denver Auto Show, actually. So we ran the auto show and had, I think it was a dozen EVs running. So we got a ton of test drives, a lot of exposure with our dealers, and gave them a good opportunity to show off their EVs to the community and give them a contact to connect on that. And then I wanted to share a testimonial from one of our partner dealers. Getting feedback from them on how the program working is really helps us inform our work to make sure that we're continuing to provide them appropriate resources and things that they need. So one of our dealers said we can, the continuing evolving landscape is hard to keep up with. On several occasions, our team went out and visited with their sales staff to answer questions and provide up-to-date information. And they've also been invited with us to go to several test drive events so their team could connect with customers. And it's really been a mutually beneficial partnership. So we're also excited about things to come to that. We oftentimes go to these partner dealerships and do workshops to keep them up to par on what's going on in the funding landscape. There's a lot of pieces at play within our state. So helping them untangle and understand that for their sales team, management, and then also for their customers is a really key part of what we do for those dealers here. So we're really excited to continue the efforts in this program, but thank you for letting me share. That's all from me.
Thank you, Gabriella. Great work. All right, I believe we have Mrs. Colleen Kettles from Florida.
Right. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm here today with my colleague, Elizabeth Myron, and we welcome you to this presentation today about one of Drive Electric Florida's utility members and their success in facilitating fleet electrification. But before we start, our fun fact is an audience participation question. So looking at these magnets, you'll see that one item is no longer relevant. If you know the answer, put it in the chat and I will announce the winner. And I hope somebody puts it in there soon so I can start the rest of my presentation. All right, Alan, no more shuttles. Okay, Alan and Jonathan tie. So that is correct. The space shuttle program concluded with its last mission, STS-135, flown by Shuttle Atlantis in July of 2011, retiring the final shuttle in the fleet. The space shuttle program formally ended in August of 2011. It's actually a little sad fact. So next slide. So today we're featuring the Fleet Electrification Program developed by the Jacksonville Electric Authority, also known as JEA. JEA is the municipal utility serving Duval County, Florida, and the surrounding area. Jacksonville is the largest city and land area in the lower 48 states and the most populous city in the Southeast US. JEA is the 8th largest community-owned electric utility company in the US and the largest in Florida. JEA's EV initiatives support their customers' efforts to learn about and how to buy and drive an EV. JEA is active in North Florida Clean Fuels, Drive Electric Florida. They help create the North Florida chapter of Drive Electric Florida, and they regularly participate in community ride and drive events. After years of supporting their commercial customers' efforts to electrify their vehicle fleets, JEA recently decided to offer a streamlined program that would benefit their customers while allowing JEA to manage their grid resources. They also wanted their fleet customers to consider JEA as their go-to resource for transitioning to EVs. Next slide. A JEA commercial customer with a vehicle fleet of any size can use the total cost of ownership calculator on the JEA website to gain access to the program. The TCO calculator will capture the information needed for JEA and their consultants to provide an initial assessment of the fleet's electrification opportunities. The customer can select from 2 levels of support from JEA based on the size of their fleet. Level 1 is for smaller fleets and allows the customer to use the online tool to learn about available EVs and get a total cost of ownership estimate to convert their fleets and learn about available EV models. Level 2 is designed for larger fleets. JEA will provide these customers with consulting and engineering services to develop a comprehensive fleet conversion plan and conduct a site inspection of the customer's facilities to identify any needed electric utility upgrades. The JEA team includes Resource Innovations as their implementation contractor for the fleet electrification program, AECOM to produce customer fleet conversion plans, and ZappyRide to construct the online total cost of ownership tool. According to Dave McKee, JEA Electrification Program Manager, JEA's was its own first customer to develop a fleet conversion plan. He also views this program as a best practice developed as a result of their years of supporting customer interest in vehicle electrification. We are grateful to Dave and his team for their support of Florida's vehicle electrification efforts and for sharing their success story. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, Dave. Okay, so I think we are 13 down and 1 to go. Matthew Chrisman is going to lead us through the Wisconsin presentation. And we see that the vast majority of you all stayed. I'm glad that you did. Wait till you see Matthew's slides. The floor is yours, Matthew.
Good afternoon. Many of you are familiar with Wisconsin's official state slogan, America's Dairyland, which originated in 1930 and became official in 1940. However, did you know that Wisconsin continues to evolve and recognize its identity? This month, Wisconsin named the brandy Old Fashioned as the official state cocktail. Next slide, please. So, through the Drive Electric Wisconsin initiative, Wisconsin Clean Cities works to engage with fleets across the state, providing education and highlighting the success of those who are actively deploying electric vehicles. Today, we appreciate the opportunity to highlight the success of several organizations who are leading the way in the adoption of electric vehicles, ranging from electric utilities to city governments, colleges, and businesses of all sizes. Collectively, there are several lessons learned, including the need for analysis of vehicle use and infrastructure availability before acquisition, education on economics and operational benefits, and hands-on experience is necessary to grow acceptance. Next slide, please. Dairyland Power Cooperative is an excellent example of electricity providers supporting the EV transition through both vehicle and charging infrastructure deployment, especially in this case as they operate in more rural areas of Wisconsin. Dairyland Power has demonstrated tremendous growth in charging station access, including the formation of Charge EV, support of educational events, and internal fleet deployments, including the use of Ford e-Transit van. Next slide, please. Two organizations who have adopted electric vehicles as part of their sustainability initiatives are Masters Gallery Foods and Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. Masters Gallery Foods acquired their first electric Class 8 truck in Wisconsin in 2022, which has already made an impact on operational carbon reduction efforts and long-term fleet planning. The orange EV terminal truck is expected to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by over 750 tons during its operational life. Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, a nationally recognized two-year public college, has demonstrated rapid adoption of charging infrastructure on campus, growing from 1 to 12 level 2 chargers, supporting campus, faculty, and commuter student adoption of electric vehicles. NWTC started their fleet transition with a Ford Lightning pickup truck, which is saving them over $700 per month compared to their previous gasoline vehicle. On-campus public engagement through car shows, programs, and degrees will help ensure the region is prepared for both infrastructure and vehicles. Next slide, please. Fleets of all sizes are adopting electric vehicles in Wisconsin. Companies like Shea Electric and Faith Technologies are actively supporting both the installation of charging infrastructure and the utilization of electric vehicles in their fleets. Smaller communities like the village of Somerset are demonstrating the benefits of electric vehicles and serving as an example to others across the country. In their deployment of a Tesla Model Y squad car, they are expected to save over $80,000 during the life of the vehicle. Next slide, please. The City of Madison is a leading example of what can be done when an organization supports the transition to clean transportation fuels. In 5 years, they have gone from 0 to 109 electric vehicles with a diverse fleet ranging from electric off-road equipment to the first nationally deployed electric fire engine. Most recently, they've acquired 16 Ford Lightning trucks with an additional 40 electric vehicles on order, including 3 Class 8 refuse trucks. They are committed to the conversion of all gas-powered vehicles to electric by 2030, which would be equivalent to 900 vehicles. Beyond vehicles, the City of Madison fleet is based in a LEED Gold certified building and has 60 EV chargers installed across city buildings to support operations. Thank you very much.
Wow. Great job, Matthew, and wow, go Madison. Interesting to see the beam in the bottom left-hand corner with the Tesla plugged in there. I think everybody probably knows what a beam is, but that's that grid independent solar powered EV charger that you can basically plop down anywhere with the battery backup system that's underneath it. But yeah, great job, team. Okay, so we're down to questions anyone might have. If you want to, you can, let me see if I can. Yeah, so people should be able to unmute themselves. If you want to unmute yourself to ask a question, you can put something in the chat. We will put the slides and the webinar on the website. It will probably end up towards the bottom of the homepage, but we will make it so it's not too hard to find on that website. But if anybody has questions, you're welcome to ask them now. I'll state that, you know, it's been a real pleasure to work with all these folks across 13 states other than Tennessee over the last few years on these projects. One of the most interesting things that I think we've learned along the way is we really had to have some flexibility in here, because the way things are done in Colorado and Pennsylvania are not exactly the same way they may be done in Wisconsin or Louisiana. But it's been a lot of fun, and we have learned a lot from other states that have, you know, from some of the results you've seen, where each state was just presenting on one of the priority area of the work they did. Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody unmute. Not seeing questions in chat.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
This is Barry Carr. How are you?
I'm very good. Hey, Barry.
Great job, everyone. I only caught the tail end, but I'll watch the rest of it later. My question is, did you have any, you know, obviously we're part of Drive Electric USA 2 in New York. And in some other projects, we've had some difficulty in getting our state DOT's buy-in. So the DOT and the DEC, did anybody utilize the power of the Department of Energy or any other ideas as to how to best insert yourself into existing DOT and DEC programs?
Yeah, so coordinators, unmute if you want to respond to this. I know that I've heard, you know, it's been that way for a while, or there's been difficulties. Some coalitions have had better relationships with state DOTs than others. I know that we've heard from some states that the DOT was understaffed and people were so busy doing stuff that they had backlogged for work that it was hard to take on new stuff. But anybody want to comment on this where you worked on your relationship with your DOT?
Well, this is Tony, and I've probably talked on this before, but the NEVI dollars that coming through all the DOTs, that might be an easier way to get in because you can help maybe promote the program, spread the word around your portion of the state and let everybody know, hey, there's NEVI dollars out there. Talk to it, because in Pennsylvania, our DOT wanted to know beforehand if we were working with anybody for the NEVI. They just wanted to see who's working on NEVI programs or projects, and then also for the CFI funding, they contacted both Rick's coalition and my coalition to see if we were working on any federal projects. So that might be an easy way to get in. And if you're not already working with them, I know you got connections, Barry. You should be able to get into the DOT in your state.
Thanks. We have a great relationship with the regional DOT in upstate New York, but on the state side in Albany, it's been much tougher because it's a politically appointed position. And so they're kind of like, we're doing what the governor tells us to do, right? That's like they have enough to do, but we'll figure it out. I appreciate that.
All right, let's see, trying to watch chat here. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. So we know you guys took a lot of time out to join us, so we really appreciate it. We will get the slides and the video uploaded to the website. Otherwise, you saw my contact information. We showed you on the website. If you go over to program team, you can find emails for some of the leaders with these states. But as we continue this project and move into kind of Drive Electric USA 2 phase, we'll hopefully have more frequent webinars to be able to talk about some of the things that are going on in our states. Thanks everybody for joining. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
Great job, Jonathan.
Yep, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Get to work, Barry.
That's a stretch.